Put your hands in the air. You're under arrest.
You talk to me like that in front of my son, fuck you and your family.
The Untouchables, the ultimate gangster epic that transported us to Prohibition-era Chicago and delivered one of cinema's most unforgettable battles between good and evil. But beyond those Tommy guns and that legendary staircase sequence lies some mind-blowing secrets that'll have you questioning everything you thought you knew about this cinematic powerhouse. Stick around because today we're diving into 10 weird and wild Untouchables facts that sound completely made up but aren't. And trust us, you don't want to miss the bonus fact at the end. It's criminal. Number 1. De Niro's unbelievable transformation. Robert De Niro's commitment to playing Al Capone went far beyond memorizing lines. The method acting legend gained 30 pounds, shaved his head, and wore exact replicas of Capone's actual tailored suits, paying $20,000 for just 8 suits.
Somebody messes with me, I'm gonna mess with him.
He even insisted on wearing the same silk underwear Capone wore, despite these never being visible on camera. Most shockingly, De Niro tracked down Capone's actual hat maker to create identical headwear with the same precise measurements as the crime boss himself. Studio executives were stunned when they realized De Niro demanded all this for a role that ultimately appears in less than 30 minutes of screen time. That obsessive dedication to authenticity? It's why even real-life Capone associates said the performance was eerily accurate. Number 2. Costner almost wasn't Elliot Ness. Kevin Costner was nowhere near the first choice to play legendary Treasury agent Elliot Ness. Director Brian De Palma initially approached Don Johnson, Mel Gibson, and even Mickey Rourke for the role. While these stars passed for various reasons, the most surprising near casting was Harrison Ford, who was intensely interested but ultimately had scheduling conflicts with another film. When Costner finally landed the part, critics questioned the decision, calling him too inexperienced for such a pivotal role. The studio fought De Palma on the casting until the very last minute. That career-defining performance that launched Costner into superstardom? It almost never happened at all. Sometimes Hollywood's backup plans become its greatest triumphs. Number 3. Sean Connery's Oscar-winning accident. Sean Connery's iconic performance as Jim Malone, which earned him his only Oscar, was largely improvised on set. The script originally called for Malone to be a minor character who dies early in the film, but Connery's charismatic interpretation convinced De Palma to completely rewrite the role. The famous Chicago Way speech wasn't in the original screenplay at all. Connery improvised it during rehearsals, drawing from stories his father told him about street fighting in Edinburgh. The character's increased prominence forced significant rewrites throughout production. Most surprisingly, Connery himself suggested his character's brutal death scene, arguing it would have more emotional impact than the original quieter ending planned for Malone. That unforgettable performance that gave Connery his long-overdue Academy Award? It was largely created by the actor himself, not the screenwriters. Number 4. The real-life Untouchables were nothing like the movie. The film portrays Elliot Ness and his team as the heroes who finally brought down Al Capone, but historians have long pointed out this dramatization strays wildly from reality. In truth, Ness and his Untouchables never personally confronted Capone, never participated in shootouts with his gang, and played virtually no role in his eventual tax evasion conviction. The real-life Ness was primarily responsible for raiding Capone's breweries, while completely different Treasury officials built the tax case. The movie's dramatic courthouse scene where Ness intimidates the judge? Pure Hollywood invention.
Order in the court! Order!
Even more surprising, many scenes portrayed as fiction were actually true, just not involving Ness. The baseball bat murder at the dinner table? A real Capone execution, just not witnessed by anyone who lived to tell about it. That disconnect between cinema and history? It's the perfect example of how legendary films sometimes create more compelling myths than the truth itself could provide. Number 5. The Union Station staircase sequence. The breathtaking staircase shootout, where Ness desperately tries to save a baby carriage during a gunfight, is widely considered one of the greatest action sequences ever filmed. But what most viewers don't realize is that this iconic scene never existed in the original script. De Palma added it midway through production as an homage to Sergei Eisenstein's 1925 film Battleship Potemkin, which features a similar sequence. The entire shoot was a logistical nightmare. Chicago's actual Union Station wouldn't permit filming, forcing the production to recreate portions of the station on a soundstage while filming other parts in Chicago's Central Post Office. The baby carriage sequence alone took 7 days to film and required building a special extended staircase since the real one wasn't long enough for the dramatic slow-motion sequence. The production used 11 different babies during shooting, and the carriage was controlled by nearly invisible fishing lines to ensure its precarious descent. That heart-stopping cinematic moment that's studied in film schools worldwide, it was an impromptu tribute that almost didn't happen. Number 6. The censorship battle. The Untouchables faced intense scrutiny from studio censors who deemed multiple scenes too violent for theatrical release. The infamous baseball bat murder initially showed the victim's head exploding on impact, a shot that had to be cut completely. Capone's brutal killing of the traitor in his organization was originally much longer and more graphic. The most controversial scene, Malone's shotgun death, underwent 14 different edits before censors would approve it. The production team fought back by strategically including ultra-violent sacrifice scenes they knew would be cut, allowing the scenes they actually wanted to remain intact. De Palma later admitted using this tactic throughout his career, including even more shocking content to distract censors from the controversial scenes he was determined to keep. That perfectly balanced violence that feels shocking without becoming gratuitous? It was the result of an elaborate chess game between filmmakers and studio censors. Number 7. The music almost didn't happen. Ennio Morricone's haunting, Oscar-nominated score almost didn't exist. Brian De Palma initially wanted Bernard Herrmann to compose the soundtrack, unaware Herrmann had died years earlier. The studio then pushed for a contemporary pop soundtrack to attract younger audiences, a decision De Palma fought bitterly. When Morricone was finally hired, he composed the entire score without seeing a single frame of footage, working entirely from the script and De Palma's descriptions. Most incredibly, Morricone spoke virtually no English, communicating with De Palma through interpreters throughout the entire composition process. The iconic music was recorded in its entirety in just 3 days, lightning speed for a major film score. That unforgettable soundtrack that perfectly captures both the period and the tension. It was created through language barriers, tight deadlines, and a composer who never saw the film while writing it. Number 8. The Canadian Whiskey Raid. The film's opening sequence showing Ness discovering a warehouse full of Canadian whiskey was based on an actual raid, but with one incredible detail left out. The real warehouse contained not just illegal alcohol, but also a fully operational circus, complete with elephants, lions, and trapeze equipment that Capone used as a front for his smuggling operation. De Palma filmed the elaborate circus sequence, spending nearly $600,000 on animals, performers, and set decoration, but ultimately cut it entirely, believing it seemed too fantastical for audiences to accept as real. The only remnant in the final film is a brief shot of an elephant painting, visible for just seconds in the background. Several circus performers remained on the payroll throughout production, with their contracts requiring they be available for potential reshoots that never materialized. That bizarre real-life detail that sounds like something from a surrealist film? Sometimes truth is stranger than anything filmmakers dare to put on screen. Number 9. The fictional Italian policeman. The character of George Stone, Andy Garcia, the Italian-American police officer with perfect marksmanship, was entirely fictional, created to give the film ethnic balance during a period when Italian-Americans were concerned about perpetuating gangster stereotypes. The character was so controversial that the studio received numerous complaints from Italian-American organizations before filming even began. To address these concerns, the production hired cultural consultants to ensure Stone was portrayed with appropriate dignity and depth. Garcia, who is Cuban, worked with dialect coaches to perfect his Italian-American accent and spent months training with firearms experts to make his shooting skills believable. His character ultimately became so popular that 2 different spin-off projects were considered, though neither materialized. That perfectly balanced character who provides both ethnic representation and crucial plot functions, he was born from cultural sensitivity concerns, not historical records. Number 10, the star that almost stole the show. Patricia Clarkson's role as Ness's wife Catherine was originally much larger, including several key scenes showing the Ness family being threatened by Capone's men. Test audiences found these domestic sequences so compelling that the studio considered expanding her role even further, potentially positioning the film as more of a family drama. De Palma ultimately cut most of her scenes, believing they distracted from the core conflict. The deleted footage included a tense sequence where Catherine confronts Capone at a restaurant, defiantly showing she won't be intimidated. Another cut scene revealed she had been secretly taking shooting lessons to protect herself and her daughter. Clarkson later said the role would have been career-changing had these scenes remained. The film's theatrical run included at least 4 completely different versions, each with varying amounts of Catherine's story included, depending on which test audience reactions the local distributors preferred. That supporting character who mysteriously disappears for long stretches of the film. Her story ended up mostly on the cutting room floor, despite being initially central to the emotional core. Bonus fact, the real Eliot Ness's sad ending. The film portrays Eliot Ness as a triumphant hero who defeated America's most notorious gangster, but the real Ness's life took a tragic turn after the Capone case. After Prohibition ended, Ness struggled to find purpose, bouncing between law enforcement positions with diminishing success. Despite his earlier fame, he failed in a run for Cleveland mayor, developed a serious drinking problem, ironic for Prohibition's famous enforcer, and eventually died broke at age 54. Most heartbreakingly, he passed away just before the publication of the Untouchables book that would have restored his finances and reputation. The manuscript, which he had sold the rights to for a pittance, became a bestseller and spawned both a hit TV series and eventually the blockbuster film, none of which he lived to see. Ness was buried in an unmarked grave until 1997, when admirers finally purchased a proper headstone. That heroic lawman who received a triumphant cinematic ending? Reality wrote him a much darker final chapter than Hollywood ever could. And there you have it. Strange, surprising, and absolutely true facts about the Untouchables that even die-hard fans might not know. If you enjoyed this cinematic deep dive, smash that like button, subscribe for more Hollywood secrets, and remember, in the immortal words of Jim Malone, that's the Chicago way. We'll see you next time for more movie magic that's stranger than fiction.